So for those of you who weren't here last week, I'll just talk about real quick apologetics. The word apologetics doesn't mean apologizing for being a Christian. It comes from the Greek word apologia, which means to defend or give an account for. I don't know how in English we always hillbilly up words. You know, we tell people apologize, which really means explain yourself, not say you're sorry. But which is, I guess it means explain yourself and then say you're sorry. But I'm surprised at how many people I meet that think when they hear a Christian apologist that thinks that that's what it means. It's someone who apologizes for being a Christian, and which doesn't make any sense. But if you weren't here last week, there's the recap to open up this discussion. And today we're going to talk about something many people have talked about, whether it's Christians or atheists. Why is God invisible? Now, when Christians say it, it's usually out of frustration, but when atheists say it, there's a subtext to it, because what's being insinuated is that he doesn't exist, that God doesn't exist. The Bible repeatedly gives nods to the fact that God's creation in itself is the evidence for his presence. And that's largely what we're going to talk about today. Like I said, the problem with Christians is sometimes they try to tell people, look, the Bible says this, therefore it's all real. When people won't pay attention to the Bible, you take them to what they do know and show them how it leads back to the Bible. That's the most effective way to do apologetics. Romans 1:18 through 20 says, I'm going to read this again later. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Psalm 8:3 through 4 says, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. Wow, okay, so it addresses pretty much everything I just said about the evidence of God is what's around us. Design implies a designer. There's something that brought this here. I remember a few years ago, because this happens to Christians, I watched this documentary it was about the existence of God, and they had a Christian musician, who, I don't remember his name. He was popular. I don't listen to a lot of Christian bands because I don't think there's many that are that good that they put out in the front. The ones I find that are good are always like, how come I haven't heard of this guy? But anyway, he was a younger, like, boy band type Christian band pop music guy. And he was explaining, he was a son of a pastor too. He's married with kids. And he was explaining about losing his faith, why he lost his faith. He left the whole Christian music thing, and he said that he was worried that the Christian community would attack him. But he was pleasantly surprised at the overwhelming support he got from other young people who thought the same way he did. Now, I want to say something so you understand my perspective. My perspective is this. I did everything you're not supposed to do in music. I had some good success. I went everywhere, done everything, all the stuff I wasn't supposed to do, and still was with Christ in my heart, but not walking in obedience. And I've seen a lot of Christian bands who do not behave like Christian bands, that when you see them they've been at my shows, backstage, I'm like, dude, you're not a Christian band acting like this. And so I've seen the music industry from all different angles. And I'm not saying all Christian bands are like that. That's not the takeaway. I know a few that are really good people and they live it out. So I don't want to make it sound like that. Here was his thought process. He said, why he lost his faith. What kind of father would I be if I were to disappear from the lives of my kids and they had no way of seeing or talking to me, but I would expect them just to believe in me while having no participation in their daily lives, and still expecting them to believe that I love them? And if they do, one day they'll get to see me. That doesn't seem like something a heavenly Father would do. Okay. First of all, people reflect onto God what they expect of an earthly father. They want to humanize God and make him like us. And that's one thing I learned about people who, because they hear the word father in church all the time. If especially with females in counseling, you learn this early on. If they had a terrible father, then when they hear the word father in church, whether they realize it or not, they're making an association and a connection. And it's a turnoff. They're like, well, I know what a father's like. And so you have to address that without directly addressing it. In essence, what he's doing is he's projecting on to God what he feels an earthly father should be like, so therefore God should be the same way. We only call God Father because that's the closest thing we have. It's much deeper, more meaningful, majestic, and larger than the word Father. In the spiritual application, it's just far more encompassing than what the human definition of a father is. So the common problem for people is that if God doesn't behave in the way that they do, then he must not be there. If you don't do things the way I do things, then you're not there. That's just ridiculous. That's essentially what he's saying. He's comparing himself. He's lives in a finite existence, in a finite universe, and he's asking questions that could only be answered in infinity by an infinite God. And he wonders why he's not getting the answer he thinks he should as a human being. I think his pastor father didn't teach him anything about theology or apologetics. He must not exist. In other words, if I can't sit down and drink a cup of coffee with God, he must not be there. This is an absurd, demanded tangibility that people have to say that God's there. It's a childish, it walks right past the whole reasoning that absence of proof is not proof of absence. And that applies to many things in science. There's many things we can't see. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because this is where you can start with people who don't know the Bible. There's things that exist all the time that you don't discuss. I came up with this riddle a long time ago when I first got here, and I read it once. I think it was up here. I'm not sure if I did or not, but I'm going to read it again. This is invisible. You tell me what this is. I've never done this in church before. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. And if you heard me say it before, you'll know. Wait till I get to the end. What am I? What's my name? Whatever. Here we go. I'm invisible. I keep people alive. I kill people. I save people. I hurt people. I connect people. I even deliver messages. I'm not the internet. I'm not a phone. I'm not a gadget. I'm not a thing. I'm not fire. Those things bow to me. I help watch people. I help document people. I help hide people. I help people see. I existed long before you in the heavens. I can take away darkness and I can bring it. I can scorch the earth. Cities rise from my power and crumble in my absence. I'm a weapon for the police. I am a weapon for the thief. You can see my work, but you'll never see me. You do not have the required physical sense to see me. The true, wonderful, terrifying, inimitable me. I can't be seen with eyes, only my work. I can't be arrested or indicted. I'm in no way subject to any human social construct. You can measure me and harness me and create and sell me. Never forget, I have a will of my own, and I will either serve you or strike you every chance I get. I'm unpredictable. I'm organized. I'm chaos. I demand your respect. Don't ever make the mistake of thinking I don't exist, or the fatal mistake of thinking that I don't have access to you. Who am I? Electricity. I am electricity. That's all true. I'm invisible. I keep people alive. I kill people. I save people. I hurt people. I connect people. I'm not an internet. I'm not a gadget. I'm not a thing. I'm not fire. Those bow before me. I watch people. I document people. I help to hide people. On and on and on. All these things are done with electricity. From the smallest gadget to they're all electricity. In the heavens, remember the flash, like a flash of light, Satan was gone. I existed before you. Many things that are far less evident than God operate in our daily lives. Man, but we live this life, as the saying goes, okay, can't see the forest before the trees. It's our human nature that wants to reject God, though, because of the moral implications. People who don't believe that God exists, calling him invisible, are missing out on one of the most vital elements for happiness and the ability to process complete truth. So this whole desire to eliminate God from their worldview, when people say, well, he's an invisible God, he's an invisible sky God. And I'm going to unpack this whole reasoning behind electricity more, and not just electricity, here in a minute. But they want to eliminate God because it's like I said last week, people don't want God. People say, well, man invented God, so there'd be peace on earth. Watch the news and tell me how that's working out. Man doesn't want a God. If man had it his way, there'd be no God. He'd be in charge. The motive is so I can say what's right. I don't want a God to tell me that. I'll determine that's right. Why? Because it stops me from experience hunting and pleasure. I want all the pleasure I can have. Give me everything I want until it hurts. That's the human view. And we know from AIDS and venereal diseases and political violence and dead baby parts in commercially zoned buildings, as well as the ones that are for sale for embryonic research. The homeless population, families shattered by divorce and psychological conditions, such as gender dysphoria, which is now being promoted instead of treated, that yes, the inmates are now running the asylum. Because pleasure has been crowned the new king. And if you stand in the way of it, you'll get killed. If you try to pass legislation, you hate me and I'll kill you. And that's upside down thinking. Right and wrong have become distorted, perverted, and destructive. And that's what happens. When man takes God away, these are the results when mankind decides that God is not welcome in the rule of law and reason. Well, if your God's there, why is he invisible? Why do I need someone else? You're uptight, you Christians, and you don't want us to have any fun. That's not true. Christians are human beings. They have all the same physical desires as other people. But this is why people don't want God. This is the motivation for the question, why is he invisible if he's there? And the argument I'm bringing you, starting with the electricity thing, is he's way more present than they're paying attention to. Listen, everyone in here is so much bigger than what you think you are. You have the power and the importance of 1 million exploding suns. You're not a body walking around with a soul in it. You are an eternal, luminous soul with temporary custody of a body. That's what you are. And that's how you should look at eternity. Not worrying about how many pieces of cheese you can... Jackie just brought me some cheese, and it's good cheese. And not how many pieces of cheese you can get in this world, but for the big wheel that's in eternity. The problem with the philosophy that God's invisible is, we'll just say non-existent. That's what it means when they say invisible, is you deny yourself of your own true existence and the privileges that come with the gift of understanding. Because we all interact with and have our lives governed by invisible forces. This is what I find so amazing. Everything in your life is governed by the most powerful invisible forces that no one even talks about. They're not tangible. Everything you see happening around you, everything around you right now is an invisible force that's more powerful than anything you can buy or own. Gravity, electricity, and time. Time, space. Our life depends on gravity, but we can't see it. We can't see gravity. We see the results of it, right? Walking, flying, driving, building, balancing. All the things that are required to keep you in your chair and not floating off into space and imploding into a glob. That's gravity. Our brains operate on electricity, electrical impulses, and we pay for electricity. We pay for all this electricity going through these walls right now. Can't see it, can't see any of it. All I can see is the results of what it accomplishes. I can't see it. I can measure it, I can put a voltmeter on it. I can't see it though. I can see the results of what it does. Does that make it invisible? I mean, prove it's there. You ever saw a wire and went, should I touch that? Well, you're going to experience real quick if it's there. I couldn't see it, but I know it's there. Yep, we see the results of it all. Lights, the heating, time. People don't think about time. Time is a place, a fabric, a dimension. What do we get? Well, we can plan. We can stop and observe God's creation. We get fed experiential learning. It gives us a linear existence so that we can plan and we can measure all other realms of understanding. But we can't see time. We see its results because we get old and we study history. And we use it to measure speed, and we use it to measure distance and the other aspects of God's creation. I can't see electricity, but I see the results. I can't see gravity, but here we are. I can't see time, but I see the results. God is love, and is what we are to manifest in our existence. I sat through so many theology classes in Bible college so they could say, what is God? And talking for 4-hour blocks to arrive at God is love. Love is the invisible force that makes the world go round. It procreates. It feeds other people. It helps people. It sacrificially builds relationship. It perpetuates all life, but we can't see it. I can't see love. I could look, how much you love your children or your spouse or something, I could say, do you love them? And you tell me yes, and I say, prove it. You can't prove it. I can't hook up a machine to you to see if there's love in you. I could hook up a lie detector test, but that detects deception. I would say, you'd eventually get mad. You'd say, you can't tell me I don't love my kids. I do. How do you know? Because, look, it's there. I don't know how to explain it, but it's there. It's in me. I feel it. It's there. I know it's there. That's what you would say. And you'd be right. Because love is invisible. But, just like everything else, what do we see? The results. When we look around, we see the results of how we interact with our fellow man, how we interact with each other. Remember, we're a chip off the old block, made in God's image. God is love. If we want to know more about the invisible, powerful force of electricity, we study science books. If we want to know more about gravity and time, we study physics books. We want to know more about the force that creates all these things that sustain our existence. We read about the one who made them, the Bible. God is so concerned that we believe in him that he walked among us in order to enable us to write a book on him so we could learn, what did the verse say? Without excuse. Without excuse. It's interesting how we live every day. Every day we have this unshakable, unquestionable, we don't even think about it, this massive faith and trust in the things we can't see. You walk, you have faith that gravity will work. You don't even think about it. You just have the faith. When you think, you just assume there's not going to be any issues, and you don't think about neurons and electro impulses and all that. You just know it's going to work. You know it's going to work. You've seen the results. You know when you walk on the ground, gravity's going to be there. When you make plans, you have faith. Time is not going to stop or change, that you're going to be able to do. You just have that faith. You have that trust. Nowhere in the Bible is this reality more true and affirming than in Hebrews 11:1, where it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the evidence of things not seen. So all the most important things in your life, and I'm saying this to someone who says, why is God invisible, are things that you can't see, that are the most powerful forces in the universe that keep you alive. Where did they come from? If they don't believe in God, then they must believe, they must cling to some theory, and usually it's everything has an origin. What's the origin of these things? The most important things that all coincidentally are invisible. Why is it that when we look at eternity and the invisible things that we have faith in, yet we doubt the source of their origin? So after proving the reliability of all the invisible forces that God created to show himself to us, imagine all these things we have just to exist that are here, the most powerful thing. Imagine us going, I don't think you're there. I don't believe in you. You're not there. That is absolutely moronic. Again, I'm going to read Romans again, right here. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against the godlessness and wickedness of the people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. We know the Creator exists because we live in the creation. This demanded tangibility, I think, is what I call it. If you ask me tomorrow things I believe in, my truck's out there. You can go look at it. There's my truck. I see it. It's right there. I don't wake up and think about gravity. But if you ask me which one I would rather have disappear this afternoon, I'm going to say I want to keep the gravity. You can have the truck. All life depends on the things God has provided that are invisible. Invisibility and non-existence are not the same thing. And that's what people try to equate the invisible God with. Like I said, the subtext is the non-existent God. And I know, listen, I'm with people who hurt, and I'm with people who can't stop hurting, and I talk to people who, when is it going to stop? And I know this is part of the human condition. I know that you've been through things in your life, and maybe you're going through it now where it feels like God might be invisible, and God's not invisible. David felt that way. The Bible called David a man after God's own heart, and David did some heinous stuff. It was obviously talking about the good parts of David's character, which there were many that men could learn from. David was frustrated. In Psalm 13, 1 through 6, David said, How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. Okay, so that's pretty heavy. And I know people have had these arguments. Job had arguments like this with God. The Bible doesn't tell us what the circumstances were here when David was saying these things, which actually shows a broader appeal of his statements, because it appears to be deeply rooted in like some frustration or depression. But he repeats the question, how long? How long? And I know people have done that. How long? When does this stop hurting? But even in his frustration, David, like the guy I talked about in the band before, he can't make God behave like a man. You don't behave like me. So he chooses to continue to trust God. He never insinuated God didn't exist. Never even hinted at it. Are you there? Never. He never even insinuated that. Only that he was unseen. That was his frustration. And we see the source of his frustration being like our own. Like I said, the guy I was talking about. If you don't operate like me, you're not there. That's the dumbest thing. That just makes no sense. He was comparing what he understands to things that he could never comprehend until we have faith. Faith, what the Bible say? Faith is the evidence of things unseen. So you go through everything I just went through, and then you explain that verse to somebody in the Bible, and then from the Bible, and they go, "Oh, okay, so that I get that. That makes sense now." If only we could trust God like David did, I'm frustrated that you do things differently than me, but I'll keep my faith because you have more than demonstrated your undeniable presence to me. So we're to seek God the way we seek to understand the other invisible forces in our everyday existence. The most evident, the things we can't see are the things that produce the most results. The creation that sustains us should feel like the very heartbeat of God against your soul. The things, you're here because of gravity. You could see in here because of electricity. You're having experiential learning because God has given us linear time. These are all the most important elements to have. And the one who is giving them to you makes it evident. Like I said, you should feel his heart beating against you. James 4:8 says, draw near to God and he'll draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Jeremiah 29:13. And you'll seek me and you'll find me when you search for me with all of your heart. People say, why is God invisible? Is he really invisible? Or do people just lack the required senses to see him in his fullness? Because they can't see him with these little globs, these eyes we have. I mean, they're just little biological globs. I mean, how can we say God's invisible? I can't hear a dog whistle, but the dog can. Why? Because he's a dog. I can't see in the dark, but the cats can. Why? Because they're cats. If I can't see God, it's not because he's invisible. It's because I'm not looking. And I'm not using the right things to look. Because I have the ability to see him. I have the ability to know him. And besides, you don't see things anyway. Nobody sees anything. You see light bouncing off of things. Photons. I mean, you process. That's the only reason any of this works. You're not really seeing. I know it feels like you're looking at something across the room. Everything's governed by the color of the light that's illuminating it. The photons that are bouncing off. And we've got these miraculous globs in our skulls that somehow can perceive that. That is beyond. It's insane. We can't call God invisible if we're not looking for him. If you're wearing a blindfold, you can't say the lights aren't working. Especially, some people are blindfolded, and some people let the other person somebody else put a blindfold on them. A lot of people want to see and experience Jesus to believe his existence, but the Bible teaches the opposite. To trust him, to experience him. I'll make a good point here about this in a second. And I've heard people say, well, you know what? If Jesus could come here and right in front of me just tell me and let me see for myself, I'd be Christian. That's no, you wouldn't, because it's something you experience. Something happens in your. Judas did that. Judas lived with him. He saw him do miracles. He was right there with him. He watched him, and he sold him out and betrayed him. So don't tell me that if you can just see, if he would just come here right now, you'd still be a punk. I mean, I don't mean that literally, but I mean, it's the attitude of the heart that's not seeking Christ. That's what needs fixed. Remember we talked about C.S. Lewis, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. You have to unharden your heart. We have the capability. God is love. Love is the tool to reach out and connect with God. It teaches that when we obey Jesus and seek him is when we see, feel, and know his presence. Draw near to God, he'll draw near to you, right? Can you see love? No. You can see the results. I can see a loving family when I'm around one. I know what they look like. A lot of them in this church. The evidence of who they are. I see the results. God is love and created man in his image, and we all know love well. There's people in this room that would die for someone they love. Your kids or your wife. Or God willingly died to show what that kind of love looks like. This is what the ultimate love looks like. When you think God is invisible, think on the existence of love. The Bible is the vehicle that shows us how to maximize that sense, that part about ourselves. It is a message of a God that loves to the point of self-sacrifice. Learning it and its message is to strengthen how you understand all existence. It's the God that they claim is invisible. But if I have a relationship with God, they can see the results. John 3:8 says, the wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound. You can't tell where it comes from. You can't tell where it's going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. John said that. What does that mean? Trees bend. pollens fly, waters gather. But I don't see the wind. Can you imagine standing outside on a windy day, watching the waves up in the river, leaves blowing through the air, trees bending over, and somebody says, it's windy. He goes, oh, there's no such thing as wind. What are you talking about? Where is it? I don't see it. Don't you see? Don't you see what's happening? The analogy of something being in operation that you cannot see, whether it's God directly or a person having the Holy Spirit in them, because you can't see a Christian. They can tell you they're a Christian all they want. I mean, I've experienced a lot of those. You can't see the Christian in them or the Holy Spirit in them. It is manifest in the heart of who you are, what you do, and how you care for others. It's the same point. You know they're a Christian by watching them, by observing them. Science can't prove that God doesn't exist because it is the existence of science that proves he does exist. Science is the language of God. I think I talked about that last week briefly. Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. So when someone says that God should show himself to us, we can explain that he knows us so well that he told us he would. He would do just that. I will. And he even told us that people are so deprived that they'll kill me when I get there. But I'll do this for you. And sure enough, they did just that. They killed him. Right in front of him. If he could be right here in front of me. Now you got a problem of the heart. You need to turn on, you need a glass for you to go get a drink of water. You need to have your heart with love towards God if you're going to have a relationship with God. Man didn't invent God. Man, a lot of men don't want God. He didn't just prove he was God by inventing gravity, electricity, and time. And he didn't just prove he was God by giving us the ability to love. He didn't just prove he was God by telling us the future. He didn't just prove he was God by showing up in man form. He didn't just prove he was God by walking among us and performing miracles. He didn't just prove he was God by dying in our place for sin. He didn't just prove he was God because he rose from the dead, proving that he is eternal and can't be killed. He didn't just prove he was God by being communicated with, observed, and documented more than anything in world history. In addition to all these things and more, he proved that he is God, and he proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that he is anything but invisible. He is anything but invisible. And when I hear someone say he's so invisible, I feel like my head's going to fall off. I'm a skeptic on everything because I have to have proof. There is nothing that has proven more of its existence than God. The invisible forces are overwhelming. They're so overwhelming we can't measure them. We use the results of what they do to measure them. I can't see time. I can't see gravity. I can't see electricity. I can't see God and live either. We talked about these things being invisible. We made the observation that we see the results. So we know they're not invisible. Last page. I know it's been a long one. They're only invisible when they're not being measured, observed, appreciated properly. God's only invisible to the people who aren't looking for him. John 14:18-21. I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. A little while longer, and the world will see me no more. But you will see me. Because I live, you will live also. At that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. He who has my commandments and keeps them, it is he who loves me, and he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself in him. The Bible tells us that the Holy Spirit is here with us, moving among us, shaping lives, convicting hearts, restoring what is broken, and bringing truth to light. He works through people, he works through nature, he works through events, often quietly, but always extremely powerfully. Scripture says, I didn't put this one up there, but it's in Acts 17:28. In him we live and move and have our being. And I want to want to make this point. God never, ever once promised us that we would see him the way we see an object. We can't even see the magnificence of the things he created that we see the results of. He never, ever promised us that we would see him like an object. He promised to be known, he promised to be experienced, and he promised to be revealed. Remember when I told you, I can't detect if you got any love in you. There's no machine I can tell if you have love in you. And God is love. God never told us we would see him like an object. He promised to be known, experienced, and revealed. Love. That's what love is. You know it, you experience it, and you reveal it to others as they reveal it for you, that they have for you to you. This is how we see God with the eyes of faith. This is how we measure the results. He's not invisible, he's everywhere. And once we know where to look, we see him everywhere too. Remember when you asked her to marry you and she said, I do? Remember when you held your baby when it was born? Remember the first time you lost someone you cared about and you prayed and people prayed for you and people come over to your house and they rubbed your shoulders and sat down and brought you lasagna? Remember all these acts of love? Remember all these things you see happen? God's there. Like a baby, like little McCoy. You know, if you think about what our life is like compared to that, these things I talk to sustain you, a baby doesn't know what's sustaining it. It's in a womb, it's like a hot tub. It's full of water, baby's warm, baby's happy, umbilical cord's going into the baby doesn't know anything else. It hears its mom's voice. It hears the vibrations, it hears her talking. It hears her when she's mad. It hears her when she's happy. It hears her. It knows her. And it knows there's this voice over me all the time. I don't know how this is all working, but I'm alive. And then one day that baby's born and looks up into the mother's eyes and says, it was you all along. I heard you. I heard you. I knew you were there. I didn't know I would be able to look at you. That's you. That's you. That's what happens to you and me. He's here all along. And we can feel him. And we can see the evidence of his presence. And there will be a day when you open your eyes and go, it was you all along. It was you all along. I know I brought that up before. It's powerful. It's true. The soul is how we see God. The other senses are, they detect what they were designed to detect. Faith is the sixth sense. But it's the first to be dismissed by those who can't get some demanded tangibility or some piece of cheese from it. They dismiss it. And they shouldn't. Because it is how you get to know God. And God is anything but invisible. All right.